All right, how's it going, everybody? Today, I wanted to do a video discussing the importance of micronutrition in bodybuilding. So I found this app called Chronometer. I've actually never come across it before, but I've seen more and more people using it. And the cool thing about this app is it also allows you not only to hit your macro targets, but your micro targets, and it inputs micronutrition along with your foods that you input into the app, into the database. And I know MyFitnessPal does this as well, but I think this app does it a little bit better. Unfortunately, it does have some of it is lacking, it is missing some of the trace vitamins and minerals, which I will talk about later on. But it is a pretty good resource that we have so far. Now, why I want to talk about micronutrition today is that I was inputting my diet into the app and, looking over things, and I noticed maybe I was deficient in some areas that I didn't think I would have been. But I also have come across some bodybuilders showing their diets, off season and pre-contest. I believe them to be pretty abysmal as far as micronutrition. So essentially, I'm just going to show you my diet. I'm going to show you an IFBB Pro's diet. I equated the calories, so we're using the same macro percentages. And I'll show you potentially where you can become deficient if you were to follow this IFBB Pro. Now, just to preface this video, I'm not an IFBB Pro, and I'm not trying to compare myself to an IFBB Pro. I just want to potentially demonstrate to why it might be important to not follow IFBB Pros for dietary information all the time. Generally speaking, IFBB Pros are very genetically gifted. They do use a good amount of pharmacology. I don't believe that to be a major contributing factor, but it is definitely a factor to be aware of. And, the thing with that is that when the general population follows the advice of someone who is genetically gifted and who has survived maybe certain training styles or certain diets that other people would not be able to survive because they do not have those type of genetics. And I like to think of the Bulgarians here, where they had a training system where they just crushed people, and the strongest people who could handle that, who were genetically predisposed to handle that amount of training and volume and intensity all the time, were the ones who survived and came out and were competing. So that's how I think of this. And ultimately, again, this person is very successful with this diet. This person looks amazing. And some of you may be able to figure it out. I don't want to try to cause or stir up anything by using their diet. I just want to simply make an example of why it might not be optimal for most people. Now, two, I am not an IFBB Pro. So the goal is obviously for myself to eventually get there. And part of this channel is me documenting my process and how I am going to get there. I believe I am capable of doing so, but this is how I'm going to go about doing it. So that's just my 2 cents as far as that goes. Again, the person who is doing this is a very high level competitor. Is there a potentially more optimal way for us to go about nutrition and training that would help us get the most out of our genetics, even the genetically elite? It's easy to see that the most successful people, what the most successful people are doing, and to copy that. But again, maybe a lot of the time they are the genetically elite. It may be tempting to look at the top 10 at the Mr. Olympia and think that they're doing everything right. But a lot of the time, they probably could be improving on some things and could potentially be getting more out of their career. And I know this is a what if, and it's really hard to speculate on things like this. But I think that if we can get this information out there, that maybe we can get more competitors doing more safe and effective practices and more optimal practices. So that's my little rant. Before I get into all this, I'm going to start by showing you my diet here. Now, again, I am biased. I follow the vertical diet. I believed long before the vertical diet that micronutrition was very, very important for athletic performance, for hypertrophy outcomes. So obviously, I'm always going to have that bias. I don't believe that there's a ton of research and literature to support this right now. But it also seems that people in the research tend to want to look at dietary supplements and whey protein and things like that more often than they do whole food sources for hypertrophy, or at least that's what it seems like to me. Obviously, I'm not super well read on the literature. I generally just follow people who interpret the literature, but it seems like their focus tends to be more on dietary supplements, more on whey protein, leaning away from red meat and things of the such. Now, this is my diet on the vertical diet currently. I have a little bit of a a lean beef meal in here for post-workout, potatoes, potassium, whole eggs, biotin, choline, tons of micronutrition. I do have 2 egg whites all day, some spinach for potassium, carrots to get some fiber, bell pepper, zucchini, more fiber, more nutrition. And then I just build my bulk of my calories with white rice, some honey for post-workout, cranberry for iodine. You get the drill. I'll put up the first page of the vertical diet just to kind of show you what this is kind of based off of. Essentially, the vertical diet is following your horizontal food groups, meeting your micronutrition, and then building volume from there. And I just more so like this model. I do follow it pretty strictly, but even just this model, if we can get more people to look at this model and look at their micronutrition before they start building food volume, I think it would be a really cool thing to see happen. So yeah, cacao powder, all this good stuff. So you see there's a large variety of food. It's not pure protein. Here, let me show you if I can see. I haven't used it on the computer yet. Okay, so here's the micronutrition. So here we go. We have 4,365 calories. We're doing 263 grams of protein, 600 carbs, 93 grams of fat. So here, my fiber is a little bit low. I'm not super concerned about this. As far as that goes, my cholesterol is not super bad. I could probably maybe increase my fiber and have that be a little bit better. Potentially, I don't know. I've never experimented with that. Iron is definitely high, and that's why I have a source of calcium with most of my meals to be able to chelate some of that iron, to be able to not absorb all of it. That is maybe one of the downsides of eating a lot of red meat. Performance-enhancing drugs will also increase your iron absorption as well. So, something to definitely watch out for, but I still think iron is beneficial in athletic performance. Calcium absolutely is. It is essential in muscle contraction. So definitely something you should have. You should have some dairy in your diet if you can tolerate it, if not a hard cheddar cheese or some Greek yogurt. Other vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin B12, folate, potassium is very important for blood pressure, especially in larger athletes like myself. Good amount of omega-3s, 45% of the diet. Lower omega-6s, you want that ratio. You want more omega-3s to 6s. Saturated fat, 34.5 grams. Unfortunately, it didn't give me the percentage here. I don't know why it didn't, but it's less than 50%, maybe something like 40% of my diet. Cholesterol, I'm at almost 1,000 grams. Iron, magnesium, meeting all of the micronutrition requirements, except for vitamin D I supplement with, except for vitamin E, which I am going to make a conscious effort to try to make sure I get more of that in my diet moving forward. So, I'm not perfect. So yeah, that's about it as far as my diet goes. Other things that unfortunately I didn't see on this app, iodine was one of them, and maybe I'll think of others as I go on. Things like biotin and one of the B vitamins is biotin actually. Some of the amino acids. Well, let's see. Yeah, amino acids such as carnitine, carnosine are on here. Some things that I think are important for bodybuilding. Cool. So now what I did was I took an IFBB Pro's current diet and, well, not their current diet, a past diet, and I equated the calories, used the same macronutrient percentages, meaning what I did was I made sure that the calories were equated amongst the diet for myself and the diet for this person. So they actually ate more calories on average than I did, but I actually made sure the calories were equated, and I used the same macro percentages, meaning if they were eating 45% of their diet from protein, I made sure that when I equated calories, it was also 45% in here. So this is what it would look like if I followed their diet model, their macro percentages at this calorie amount. So this would be for myself. So anyway, this is going to be, let's see, a very, very protein-driven diet. Way more than I would ever recommend, way more than the current scientific literature recommends. You don't really see much benefit, or we don't see much benefit when consuming protein over 1.5 grams per pound. A lot of bodybuilders like to say that, because I'm on performance-enhancing drugs, I can utilize more of the protein. I don't know if they've substantiated that with the evidence yet. I would say that it would probably make more sense that you can get away with taking less because your body is more efficient at using the protein that you do give it. So that's how I feel about that. I feel like as a bodybuilder, you can be allocating that protein to carbohydrates, and it would be awesome. It would be super beneficial. The people still do it and they still get away with it. So that's totally fine. Some whey protein in here, which is something I don't generally like in the diet, egg whites, oatmeal. Again, a very high high fiber, high bloating food that I would probably not keep in the diet, especially at the volumes that it's being used here. Dextrose is great. I like using that. I don't generally pick a chicken breast because I would rather eat some red meat that has some micronutrition. Great, there's some meat in here. Peanut butter. I generally don't like added fats in the diet. I'd much rather get them from whole food sources. And then some white rice, obviously, and then a lot of fish oil, more than it almost seems very unnecessary. I think you don't really see a whole lot. I don't think there's been a lot of evidence to show that eating fish oil above 2 to 3 grams a day is super beneficial. So I don't know what the reasoning is for there. I would love to hear it if I get across it. So here we're looking at the diet, same amount of calories. This person's definitely getting more fiber, but I could only imagine they are also getting more bloating, more distension, and that's a topic for another video. But yeah, so I don't know if this is necessarily better than my diet because it has more fiber. Iron, definitely a little bit lower. That's fine, not too concerning. Calcium is not meeting the daily recommended allowance. This bodybuilder probably would have been meeting the allowance if they were still eating their calorie amount, but you can only imagine once prep starts and we start cutting back calories, this is an off-season diet, that what would happen is that calcium would get lower and lower, performances start to suffer, you start becoming deficient in these vitamins and minerals. And what would happen is that, you know, your blood pressure could rise as a result of that. You could be having poor performance outcomes because of that. So it's definitely important to look at things like this. So one thing I noted here, there was a deficiency in all fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K, and also vitamin C. There's none coming from the diet. This person did not list their vegetables. I can only assume they're probably eating things like broccoli and asparagus because that's commonly what's practiced. I don't want to assume too much. I tried to look through some videos and didn't see much about it. But those are things I would personally avoid. So, and again, I'm speaking hypothetically. I would hope that this person is maybe following some good practices and looking into things that digest well with them. And I'm sure they have a formula that works great for them. B12, another thing that they're deficient in. This is really, really important. And B12 is another important vitamin you do not want to be deficient in. And they're only getting about 60% from their diet. Really naturally low in fat diet, and this is only going to get lower. And for this individual, I don't know if they're hitting 0.3 grams per pound, but I think they're not too bad right here. A lot of omega-3s. I don't know necessarily the reason for this. Maybe this is beneficial. I haven't really seen much on it being beneficial. Only 17 grams of saturated fat. Not super concerning. Not super concerning. As far as dietary cholesterol, I mean, I believe that that cholesterol was removed off of nutrient concern. Can't remember if it was the World Health Organization or another organization, but essentially they didn't see any correlation or causation between ingested dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol levels in the blood. So this is no longer a nutrient of concern. I've also seen similar things about saturated fat, but this person's fine. Calcium deficiency and a lot of protein. So otherwise doing pretty good. So some things that I want to point out here. So on paper, this diet isn't bad. You can definitely see some deficiencies going on. Now, would I recommend this diet for a top level athlete? Absolutely not. I know I'm not a top level coach, but even just having the vitamin and mineral deficiencies that are there, I wouldn't recommend it for an athlete. Now you may say, Dylan, they probably take a multivitamin. Okay, sure. The thing and the problem with that is that the vitamin supplements are generally much less bioavailable than their food counterparts and their food sources. When you ingest whole foods, they often have a lot of coenzymes and cofactors that allow you to utilize the vitamins and minerals in those foods. When you start tampering with the foods, when you start removing certain aspects of the foods, trying to make them low fat, what I've oftentimes seen is that these foods become, they don't absorb and digest the best. They have certain deficiencies. And I just am not a fan of multivitamins. Do I have a lot of evidence to substantiate that? No, I do not. So other things that I listed that I pointed out that this diet may be problematic: an iodine deficiency. There's no source of iodine unless this person is salting their food with iodized salt, which I'm not sure if they do, but generally people don't. So iodine is very important for your thyroid function, which gets suppressed when you diet. So that can be really problematic for this person. They're probably supplementing with a thyroid hormone to counteract this. This is why I don't like traditional practice in bodybuilding, because instead of being proactive and taking and enough iodine, we're supplementing with thyroid hormone, and we're trying to manipulate these things that could be fixed by dietary deficiencies. This diet is naturally low in sodium, and it's only going to get lower as the prep goes on for this individual. So hopefully they are using adequate amount of salt, but starting as low as they were, I think it was like 100, 200 milligrams already, or 2000, sorry. Starting as low as they were, you have to be supplementing with a lot of salt. And a lot of times when you're salting your food, putting that much salt on your food may become unpalatable and hard to eat enough adequate salt to fuel performance, especially how large this individual is. They are bigger than myself. So that could be definitely an issue you could run into. And I think a lot of people are unaware of who do follow these diets blindly. Oh, this IFBB Pro does this diet, so I'm going to do it. Protein is much too high, like I said. There's a low food variety, which means for most people, it's going to be harder to comply with. It's going to be unsustainable because they are oftentimes going to crave other foods. That also has to do with sodium deficiency and other vitamin mineral deficiencies. Cravings come about with that. And then also add on top of that a low variety in the diet, and the sustainability of this diet is very, very short-lived, and a lot of people will not be able to sustain this diet long term, which is not good when you're in a prep environment where you're trying to push your body fat really low. You want sustainability to an extent. Other things I mentioned, the calcium deficient B12. This diet is also very high in abanin, which is in egg whites, and this can be a high allergen for a lot of people. It causes malabsorption of nutrients in the intestines, not something you want a lot of, and it could definitely cause bloating and distension of the stomach. Couple that with the fact that there are no whole eggs in this diet, which means it's low in biotin. And if this person is getting any biotin from their diet, it's being robbed by all of the abanin, because abanin stops biotin absorption as well. This is what causes female competitors' hair to fall out, well, male competitors as well, hair to fall out during prep, and probably leads to some balding for some individuals. Definitely something you want to be aware of. Other things to note, it's been very popular now to inject L-carnitine. A lot of pre-contest bodybuilders and off-season bodybuilders are injecting L-carnitine. This diet is very low in L-carnitine, which is found in red meat. L-carnitine as well. L-carnitine increases androgen receptor sensitivity in the muscle cells, and a lot of people have found that they're injecting it into the muscle to get that effect. But the thing is if you eat a good amount of red meat, there's a lot of bioavailable L-carnitine in red meat, so you'll get that effect. If you're a bodybuilder using performance enhancing drugs, you're going to get that effect from L-carnitine and eating some red meat in the diet. This diet is very low in red meat, so that's another concern for myself. Things that I may point out that are issues with my diet. It may be unsustainable because it has a large variety of food. So that may be hard for some people to manage. I can understand that. I just use a lot of variety because I like getting different nutrients from multiple sources, not just one, based on bioavailability and other things like that. Other things to point out is I'm a little bit low in vitamin E as well. And then some people have concerns with large red meat consumption. I haven't had any issues with it yet. I haven't had too many issues reflected on my blood work as well. We're picking lean cuts of red meat here, so generally speaking, it's not going to have a lot of saturated fat. Actually has more monounsaturated fat than saturated fat. So some questions that I just wanted to pose to all of you is, with the information I presented to you, do you believe this diet to represent optimal health and performance? If you do, give your reasoning in the comments. I would love to hear it. For me personally, it does not. And as I said before, this individual is an amazing bodybuilder and they have great genetics and they are doing great. But what I want to get across in this video is that it may not be the best to take nutrition advice from these individuals who are at the top of bodybuilding. It may be better to be looking at evidence and looking at things that work for you individually and looking at your micronutrition. A healthy body will grow muscle better than an unhealthy one. And if you don't have the best genetics, you want to stack as many cards in your favor as you can. And another thing I wanted to say is, could this individual get more out of himself and his career by focusing on micronutrition, by focusing on getting a large variety of food, by focusing on evidence-based training and sleep and all these other things? I believe they could. And one thing I just wanted to close out this video with is, I believe it's just the difference between forcing your body to grow and having it work with you in the growing process, giving it all the tools that it needs to create hypertrophy, not having it fight against you, giving it all the micronutrition, all the minerals, vitamins that would facilitate a functioning, healthy body and facilitate muscle growth. So you want your body to work for you, and you want to give it all the things that it needs to grow. So anyways, that's my rant, guys. Just wanted to talk a little bit about how I feel about those things. I think that there's a lot of great bodybuilders out there. I definitely have to go against the grain when talking about this stuff, and that's why it's been difficult for me in the past. Everybody's doing one thing, and I have to be over here doing another different thing. And obviously, I don't have a lot of accolades to be able to hold at my side and say, "Hey, look, I did this, and I did it doing it this way, using literature and science and evidence, and following a large variety diet and getting micronutrition in my diet and things like that." I one day believe I will be able to. So I appreciate all of you who have been supporting me thus far, and I'll continue my best to stay on this journey, stay the course, be confident in the fact that I think we can shift the conversation in bodybuilding about training methodologies and nutrition, and stop practicing these very old and outdated practices, and make it healthier and more sustainable for everybody involved. So that's my goal, and I appreciate you all for watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Leave any questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. Please like this video, subscribe if you support everything that I talk about, and if you don't, tell me why. All right, I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, like the video, and check out the description for links to all of my other services such as coaching and apparel. Thanks.